WhiskyJason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American over here in Germany, often reviewing rare and exotic whiskeys. Wolfburn Manzanilla single malt Scotch whiskey. 1,900 bottles worldwide, 46% ABV, Whiskybase number 252810. And over here in Germany, we're paying about 69 euros 90 for this. All right, so very, very interesting packaging bottle design, I must admit. Wolfburn is a very cool distillery all by itself. All right, they've been doing some crazy cool stuff up there in the very, very north of Scotland. Further northern you have to go is Orkney with Scapa and Highland Park. They used to be the most northern mainland distillery in Scotland. What I personally don't love is the fact that they do put a date on here of 1821. Now, the distillery itself, there was another distillery about 400 meters away that was founded 1821. This distillery here was founded, oh, I forgot. So let's look at my nice little Bible here. Was it Wolfburn? It was founded in 2013. So I wasn't perfectly sure. I should remember this. Just last year, they brought out the 10-year-old, the Wolfburn, which I did not like. And now we have 11-year-old. So this is apparently 7-year-old juice. I cannot find any reference on the website or on the box or the bottle, but every German site says it's 7 years old, so that's fine. 58 pounds in Scotland, 69 euros over here. Now, I am, of course, going to compare it to something, but before I do, a tiny little excursus here about sherry. So we have different types of sherry. We have fino sherry. So there's a very, very thick layer of flora. Flora is then yeast that protects that Palomino white wine from interacting with oxygen. Now, all over the entire sherry triangle, you can make fino. But you can make Manzanilla just in one single location. That is San Lucar de Barrameda. That is a harbor city, and that's basically fino made exactly the same way, just there. So the entire maturation of this Manzanilla quasi fino sherry is under that layer of yeast. Amontillado, the yeast is there at the beginning, dies off. Palo Cortado, basically the same. Oloroso has no layer of yeast. It actually allows the oxygen to interact, and therefore white wine turns very dark very quick. It's a dry wine. Now, we also have here different types of grapes. We have the Palo Cortado. Sorry, we don't have the Palo Cortado. We have the Pedro Jimenez grape, and we have the Moscatel grape. And so they're much, much sweeter than the Palomino-based sherries of Fino, of Palo Cortado, Oloroso, Amontillado, and Manzanilla. So, what am I going to compare it to? I have here a Wolfburn. This is the small batch 458. And this is actually also matured in Pedro Jimenez casks. So, lightly peated Pedro Jimenez sherry butts. All of these are limited release. All of these are 46%. So this is Whiskybase number 217185. There was 5,100 bottles of this. There was only 1,900 of these. And first fill pig sherry butts and bourbon barrels. Also came onto the market in Germany for about 69 euros. I must admit, Wolfburn's doing a fairly great job, I'm going to say, of keeping prices more or less stable. Now, their core range, Northland, Aora, and Morven, those are okay. I did like the Morven the best, which had more of a peat moment, which I'm not usually well known for. I have not dabbled a lot into their long skip. I have to do that sometimes soon. Their Kilver series is something I have not been up to date with, or even I had a few bottles at the beginning and I never opened them. I think they're now on, what is it, 13, Kilver release number 13. So that's kind of cool that they actually have these limited releases here. What is your favorite Wolfburn? Is it going to be just a standard product, or is it going to be a small batch like this? Wow, I didn't pour any of this. I poured this, not that. Now, Wolfburn is a fairly small distillery, 135,000 liters. About half of what Kilchoman is putting out. About, trying to say, about a 30th of what Glenlivet and Glenfiddich is putting out. All right, so just to put this into perspective, if you are on the website, wolfburn.com, and you go to the distillery and you scroll down a tiny little bit to something called Making Wolfburn the Process, you get an infographic. Now this infographic is just a PDF and it's beautiful. I personally would like to find out. I have to ask somebody. I know the master. I know the brand, it's the global brand ambassador for Wolfburn a little bit. I'm going to ask them, where do they get their peated malt and their unpeated malt from? Because on the infographic, you just see a nice little truck pulling up. Our whiskey making process starts here with the malt intake. So they have 2 malt bins with each 18,000 tons, which is not a lot. Other distilleries do that in just a couple of hours, if not days. The grinding of the malt, they get 20% grist. They get 20% husk, they get 70% meal, and they get 10% flour. So the chunks is a meal, the flour is very fine, and 20% husks. They take 1.1 tons of that grist. That's what milled malted barley is called, and they put it then into their mash tun. They have a nice little natural spring water tank that they use. The water tank was upcycled from the now closed Camperdonic distillery, where it was once used as a washback, which is kind of cool information there. And they actually ferment here. They do mashing for about 6 hours. So they take the hot water, put it in there in different phases here. Mashing in by hand gives the mash man precise control, ensuring the best quality and consistency of spirit is produced down the line. The traditional mash using 3 waters is used, and the spent draff is sent to a local farm and is used as high protein animal feed, and they have a picture of a cow there. So after it's been washed out the wort, they have to cool it and they put it into the washbacks. They have 3 washbacks, each 5,500 liters, and 1 mash run fills 1 washback. So they use yeast. Dry yeast is pitched straight into the washback by hand, and yeast is added after cooling to produce a rough beer called wash, with an alcohol strength here by Wolfburn of about 9%. It is this liquid that is distilled twice to make the Wolfburn spirit. Now there's a heat exchanger, and they actually put then that wash into a wash still, 5,500 liters, goes through the condenser, and then it's going through the Wolfburn spirit still with 3,600 liters. Also goes through the condenser, and they can actually then use the heat receiver to keep that energy in the cycle as best as possible. And then after being twice distilled, it goes to the spirit receiving tank at the warehouse, and there it is filled up into the cask at 63.5%. Very traditional, very, very conventional way of making single malt Scotch whiskey. Now, all of the spirit produced at Wolfburn is matured on-site using traditional dunnage methods with casks stored on the sides, bung up on stoves and never more than 3 high. So they use sherry butts, 500 liters. They use bourbon barrels, 200 liters. And they use quarter casks, about 120 liters. Here they wrote, actually originally, and I thought that was kind of interesting how they expressed this here. They said here, crafted from the finest Spanish oak, so we have Spanish oak casks. These Manzanilla casks arrived at Wolfburn with an exquisitely dry nose to them. Used to finish this whiskey at the end of its maturation, the resultant dram is a delight, fruity, sweet, full-bodied, and sumptuous. A whiskey that every whiskey lover should try. I would love to know how long was the finish. Now, I know I'm asking a lot. It's like, hey, give me all the information you described in the infographic, basically your entire distillation process. Wonderful. And then it's like, I'm not happy. Give me, was it a 3-day? Was it 3-month? It was a 3-year finish. I'm guessing 3 to 6 months. Who knows? But thank you for telling us it was a Spanish oak cask used here in the Manzanilla casks. On the nose, this is more of a summer whiskey, to be honest. Now, when I first opened this, I still get a tiny tad bit of sulfur. Not much, but a little bit. It doesn't distract from the quality of this whiskey. I'm also not of the opinion that Fino and Manzanilla actually work together great with whiskey. Pedro Jimenez makes everything better. PX, put your whiskey in PX. PX will basically get rid of all the faults and give you a good whiskey every single time. Fino and Manzanilla are a little bit tricky. They don't always go together, but I get a nice fresh sweetness. I get malted barley, sugars, get a tad of a whiff of peat smoke, and I get a little bit of a citrusy moment. I get yellow plums. And that's very, very interesting. Going over to the 458. Yeah, this is just Pedro Jimenez. This is plum, dark plums. This is raisins. Also prunes and raisins. Yummy. Maybe a little bit of dates in there. As I said, you can't normally go wrong with Pedro Jimenez. It's very, very seldom. I've asked this already, but write down in the comment what is your favorite Wolfburn product. I was very disappointed by the 10-year-old. But most other products from Wolfburn have really, really surprised me positively. All right, let's try this. Both 46%, both originally priced at about 69 euros. Light and complex, oily and yet fruity. The peat is so minuscule that it could actually, for me, more be interpreted as a heavy, heavy char, but it's there, and I like it. This gives another certain flavor layer to this product. This is for me a summer whiskey. Now I have a tiny, tiny little bit of a tingling on my tongue, which is often associated with sulfur, but it's so low that it doesn't detract from the feeling that I get here. This is nice. This has a light almond moment going on as well. It leaves a very long and nice finish. The Manzanilla taste profile mingles and marries well with the Wolfburn. Wow. Today this is a B- C+ whiskey. I like a lot. Now, just going over here to the 458 real quick. Now, as I said, Pedro Jimenez makes everything better. Let's try this in comparison. This for me is a fall and winter whiskey. It's got that prune, it's got that raisiny, it's got that Pedro Jimenez dark richness. This is bass. This is singing almost tenor. The peatiness of the whiskey is so minimal that it's actually a positive component that does not overtake the whiskey. I don't get any sulfur here. That's good. Going back here, I thought the first time I'd go back, it would be difficult for this whiskey to actually compete with the Pedro Jimenez. But interesting enough, the Wolfburn here, Manzanilla, is actually more than capable to actually assert itself and say, hey, I'm an individual product and you should like me. And I do. I do. The last time I had a Fino finished product that I was extremely surprised by positively was the Kilhoman. And I'm getting tiny little notes in that direction. I get a tiny little bit of the sea salt moment. I get a tiny little bit here of the citrus zest moment. I'm going to read for you the official tasting notes. On the nose, it says here by wolfburn.com, golden syrup meets cashew nut butter, overlaid with seductive vinous tones, an exceptional depth of sweet aromas. I didn't get any cashews. On the palate, there is a wonderful oily richness to this dram. Yes, I talked about that. It coats the palate and flavors just keep unfurling. Classic dry Manzanilla tones lead to rich fruit flavors, sultanas, plums, dates with subtle hints of toffee and honey. Tiny little bit of peat thrown in there. And on the finish, we have a sweet wine and fruit flavors fade gently away, leaving a lingering hint of caramel. Both of these products, it's 46%, are just optimally designed. Very, very nice. I have no idea if this is going to reach America or not. 1,900 bottles is not a lot. I'm sure Germany took at least a third of them, probably. Yeah. Value for money, 69 euros, solid C. Now, there is no evidence on the on the bottle or on the box that this is 7 years old. Everyone's printing it online, at least in Germany. I think the press release said it's 7, so it's 7-year-old distillate from a new distillery for 70 euros, 46%. Yeah. See, buy it if you want. Now, there are some people out there that are just Wolfburn fans. I have a friend, I wrote a nice little WhatsApp to him, WhatsApp message, and was like, hey, did you catch that there's a brand new Wolfburn out, the Manzanilla? And he was like, Jason, that is very important information. Thank you very much. I want a bottle now. Please send me one. And so I ordered from the importer, from one of the importers in Germany, and a wholesaler, and I sent it over to him. And the same evening, he opened it up with his wife because he's been at the distillery. He has almost all the different bottles, and he loves Wolfburn. And he was like, oh, that's delicious. And I must admit, very, very good. So, Torsten, thank you very much for that confirmation that you really like this. What is your favorite Wolfburn product? Write it down, and whoever writes down the 10-year-old, I'm going to contradict you. Almost everything else from Wolfburn was very good to good, but that 10-year-old was a disappointment. Thank you very much. See you real soon. Whiskey Jason. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye-bye.